I think you can relate. Anyone can relate to it because we've all had loss, we've all had death, we've all had struggles in our lives, and you can either choose to really, let those define you, or you look at those moments and you define them.
Welcome back, everybody, to another Keys to the Commonwealth episode. Landry Fields here, excited for today's topic. As an entrepreneur at heart, I would say with this guy, I've seen him for a while on some social medias, different aspects of what's going on in Lexington, which we'll definitely get into. But without further ado, I want to introduce Jeremy Delk to the Keys to the Commonwealth podcast today. Jeremy, thanks for coming on, man.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Absolutely. So like we start after every episode, jump back in the DeLorean, which I don't know if you have one. You might, because that could play into some of the stuff you're into. But how did you get to where you are? Where are you from? Like I think born and raised in Kentucky in that sense. And how'd you get to where you are today?
Yeah, I mean, long story and a very windy road. I wrote a book called Without a Plan, and that's basically how I did it with no clue how I was going to get there.
That's so true, though, really, right?
Yeah, just started to go. But yeah, I grew up in Bardstown, about an hour away from here, small town, and loved the small town environment. Always wanted to kind of this drive, ambition to kind of do more, see more, and be more. It led me to go away for school. So I went to school in Providence, Rhode Island. And then I had started day trading in high school, which was kind of fun. And that led me to my first career. I ended up making some good money during a super bullish market. So I took like 30 grand that my father left me for an inheritance, grew that to about $2 million.
There you go.
And then managed to blow that in 4 days, which was awesome in the market, with understanding margin calls and leverage and stuff that every 20-year-old should know.
And I kind of wish I would have learned more of that. Yeah. Now I'm like, I don't know if I could.
Yeah.
Well, when you got a little more responsibility, sometimes maybe you're not as
for sure
bullish, And
no, I mean, I was just young and dumb, and I think, but it was one of the best things that ever happened. Not losing $2 million, but in that perspective, I think to have that, it was devastating into the world. I felt like the biggest failure, but to your point, like what's the worst that could happen? Like I could have went home with my mom, right? I didn't have kids at that time, whatever. So, taking those risks early was something that's cool. But that led me to a career on Wall Street. I was the youngest institutional trader in Fidelity history. I would argue that's probably still the case. I was 20 years old. So, I mean, you have to be 18 to be licensed. So, I mean, I was pacing pretty swiftly. And that was great. I mean, that kind of got me to one of my first dreams, which was kind of, working in New York City. So I went from Boston to Wall Street and loved it. And that was my, short but successful career. And, I guess the commercial world and, working for someone else. And I went out on my own when I was 22 and started Delk Enterprises. So it's about 22 years in the making.
22 years in the making. Delk Enterprise is your main thing, obviously, and within there's a lot of different aspects of what you've got going on within that space. But I would start first of all. I mean, what brought you back to Kentucky then, in that sense? When you've obviously experienced New York, the stock trading aspect of Wall Street, and so forth like that. What was it about? Like, hey, I want to come home and do something on my own.
So I wish it was just like this internal calling. That was this fucking great story,
right?
But again, just about in the book, just one step leads to another step. That's why I'm just a big guy that just say yes to things, right? Mm-hmm. Especially when you're younger, because you don't always know where it's going to be, and people have these 100-point plans that never go that way anyway. I just taking those steps forward. But it happened two things. One, my brother's 5 years younger than me. He was going to school in Louisville and was contemplating going to the military. My mom was like not really into him going into the military. Sure. My grandfather had a business in Nicholasville. It was a fence building material distribution business. That vinyl fence. You ever drove by R.J. Corman's place? All that. So have you ever seen like privacy fence, all that? He was probably one of the first ones to start doing that with a company out of Arkansas called Buff Tech. So we had a distribution business in Nicholasville. So that's really why I'm still here. So why Nicholasville? That's the biggest question. Why Kentucky, but why Nicholasville and Lexington? So I bought that business, which was a fence business, which came with maybe an acre of land right off the Nicholasville Road. And I bought that company for my brother to not go to the military. And then I started dating a girl from back home. And one thing obviously progresses, and All my buddies in New York were getting married. Seemed like the right logical thing to do was to get married. And yeah, so I started flipping. I was spending, 3 or 4 days in Kentucky and majority time in New York, and then that slowly started to become half and half.
Okay.
And then to the majority time in Kentucky.
So it was a gradual thing, not necessarily
Yeah. But then when I'm here, I love Kentucky. I love it more now than ever.
That's a great point, because it took me traveling to appreciate what we had here, honestly.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was the same way with you or what you're talking about there.
Well, I was scared. Obviously I was, high school was great, but I grew up in a super small town, right?
Yeah.
So it wasn't that hard to be kind of popular, cool. The girls were great. I mean, like it was cool,
Right.
but there was nothing there that kind of stimulated me. So New York, I didn't know what I wanted there, but I just saw you have Sinatra said, if you can make it there, you can make it anywhere. And that was just something that was driving me. And I thrived there. I think I thrived. I came back from losing a bunch of money, got myself on my feet, started my own company in New York. I was living in Chelsea. I mean, I was living the dream. And that confidence from picking myself back up and proving to myself that I could do it, I attribute a lot of that. I attributed then, and maybe less now, but a lot then, to New York. And just that vibe. If anyone's ever been there, even if you're on a visit, there's an energy about the city. And I was deathly scared about moving back to Kentucky, that I was going to lose that edge, or I was going to lose that kind of thing. I didn't.
Sure.
But, it was natural. And Lexington is far different than obviously Bardstown. But now, today, fast forward, I think we're so spoiled. I'm fortunate and blessed to travel all around the world several times. And, Lexington, for what we have for entertainment, cost of living, housing. My friends from New York come like, what the fuck am I doing here? Why should I? I'm like, you can choose where you live. But I mean, it's unreal. It's a great town. And Lexington, I think that we're just getting started. I think the future is so bright for our city.
I mean, at some point, I've got friends that are coming to Lexington here later this fall, and I'm telling them they're like, when should we come? I'm like, October, because for me, October, football, the trees, and the gorge, horse racing, it doesn't get any better than that. And so they're coming, never been in the state of Kentucky, so I'm like super excited. And I think 5 years ago, if you would have said, hey, somebody that you don't, never been to Kentucky, what do you do? I'd be like, I don't know what we're going to do, type of scenario. So to that point, it's changed a lot. I think the upside is huge in Kentucky in that sense, especially with the industries we've got going on. And so moving and outside of that, I mean, you started obviously exploring other options, you got into real estate at certain points and stuff like that. You've gotten into exotic cars, and that's something that maybe it's there, but it's like coming that you're kind of creating right now as well. So what are you kind of working on right now in this sense, as far as entrepreneur space? Because you're probably like me, where you're always thinking something new.
I love learning. I think that's the biggest piece for me, and that's why I love going into new industries and new businesses. I've had some pretty decent success within healthcare and healthcare businesses. Okay. So we had animal health business, pharmacy business. We were invested in this diagnostic company that's local. That's actually going to be in the Kardashians tomorrow. So some cool stuff that I think has afforded me a lot of opportunities to make some money, but see the world, make some fabulous connections, and I think be a part of something bigger. So those have been like big investment stuff that have kind of helped pave the way. Even though I've been in business for 22 years, I kind of tell myself that, I'm this one trick pony, because I just keep on just making these big licks. But I love real estate. So whenever I never have cash, I never have money, I just, go through and get a big deal, and I'm always deploying that into a deal. Yeah. Drives my wife crazy. Right. But, I look at real estate. And look at it. I mean, it's happened. Global pandemic. You know what still paid me? Like my real estate still paid me, right? Yeah. Even though we had businesses that were still considered, what do they call it? Not critical, but mandatory. Mandatory. They had the mandatory status. So businesses still ran as well. But real estate, there's not any real estate that I know of in the world that's cheaper today than it was 5 years ago, right? And 100%. So that's always been that safety thing of I go through and use my business acumen to go and make some money, right? Get a couple $1,000,000 here, whatever, and then take that. And usually by the time the money's coming in, I've already got it sent out to a deal, to a real estate thing, which is great, because that's something I enjoy, that creative piece. Mm-hmm. That's why I left Wall Street. Besides money, I wasn't making anything. So I love taking something from an idea to seeing it there. I love that in businesses. I love it in real estate. I love it. That is really my big enjoyment.
Yeah.
Money obviously comes from some of those things, but it's more of like just the creativity and this project downtown, the Vine. Like, I love it. Like, everyone's like so thrilled about it. Dude, that building was for sale for 4 years.
Yeah. Because I wanted to talk about that, because I think it was it's been a year or more ago, when obviously since 2020, where it was clear that like office space was just going to be changed forever, probably, with either maybe you're hybrid, maybe you're just full-time work from home. The idea of office space is still going to be needed, but maybe not at the level that it used to be or something like that. And so I was like, you've got all these office buildings. We've got, in Lexington especially, as you know, we've got a lot of shortage of just opportunity for housing and so forth, just because of the urban service boundary, the population and so forth. There's nothing to build. So I was like, why can't we just start taking some of these office buildings and converting them? I've learned that that's in so much larger feet with regarding plumbing and all this other stuff than, on the surface it may seem. You obviously can speak a lot more to that. And basically, in general, the Vine project, I don't know if you want to give the website, go ahead, type of scenario. But it was an office building that was for sale, and then we're converting it into basically luxury condo scenarios. Is that correct?
And it was, everyone's like, oh, that's such a great idea, but it's not. I mean, I'm not the first person with the idea, right? I mean, there's 1,600 conversions going on in New York City right now.
Is there really?
Yeah. So there's, some simple kind of, math to it, right? I mean, prime Class A office space is usually in good markets, right? So it's already got the great location. What the Greers did, and the Webbs right across the street with City Center is just, such an asset for our city.
You got the park coming downtown here next year, which I just saw.
The park. They're redoing the park right across from Ruby's as well.
Yeah.
Was it Pinnacle Park, I think? But that's one. I mean, it's really something special. But you've got City Center, Ruby's, just a great little central hub within the city, and I've got real estate now right across the street from it.
Yeah.
And what we paid per square foot has allowed us to really make a cool product. I think I think our acquisition was around $70 a square foot. Like, you couldn't put the steel up for that, right? And that's including the dirt.
That's crazy.
Right? So it's allowing us to put hundreds and hundreds of dollars into interior fit outs that are just unbelievable. Like
$100 per square foot.
Hundreds of dollars a square foot. Yeah. Maybe millions and millions of dollars of what we're doing to it. And so, I don't know that I'm ever as the Greers and Webbs have like really shaped this city, and I think all of us owe a lot to those guys, because we've reaped the benefits and the values of the real estate. I mean, look what's going on with the fountains up here. I mean, it's great. So I don't have aspirations, nor ever plan to ever be into their world. But for me, I love the city so much, and I just want to do cool stuff.
Yeah.
And I want to cool. So I would like to have a cool, condo downtown, right? So like, let me go through. And I think, and the idea was, maybe other people do, and we've been selling things that aren't even on the market, because it seems like right now it looks like we were right, that there's a huge want to be down there. But the Vine's a great idea, or a great example of, you don't exactly know. Like, we were gonna buy it, stabilize it. We're going to keep 2 floors commercial there.
How's that work usually? Lower floors type of scenario?
No, well, one's an existing tenant that I think they're planning on keeping, they're a great tenant. So like, for me, I'm not married to it has to be this or has to be that. I'm looking at it as it's a real estate thing. I'll always own that building. My kids will own it. So we want rental income. The condo units are going to have an Airbnb like condo hotel aspect to it that we'll be able to manage for people, so you can get income off of your unit. So we're going to make margin and income off of this as well. So it's an income play. So if it's a transient tenant that's coming in for a game, or if it's a great financial services firm that's there paying rent, the income we don't really kind of get it separated.
There's a perfect timing too, as obviously Lexington is, or at least downtown Lexington is trying to incentivize a community or living downtown type of scenario. And as you know, that was not the case 10 years ago, where no one really wanted to live downtown. Yeah. Type of scenario.
No, for sure. So we'll see. So that project is really exciting. We modeled it to go floor by floor and kind of take our time with it.
Okay. I was going to ask, when's the first one supposed to be?
So that's all out the window now. Like, we're going full floor with the building. So we closed on the building late October of last year.
Yeah.
We've got cabinets going in next week in the first 5 units that are all sold out. So we'll deliver those late August. So less than a year, a complete conversion of those first 5.
How much of that was like planned out as far as approval with like
a lot of it
planning
was
or anything like that?
We started early, so we had obviously in commercial you have a much longer diligence period. So we had Steve Graves Architects and those guys really doing a lot of work ahead of it. So we had a pretty good design set. We'd worked very closely with the city, and the city's been great. So
was it already zoned to be able to accommodate that, or was it
B2? So you can basically you can do whatever you want. Okay, really, it was B2 right? Then. So there's no need to do that. Perfect. So we timed it up that literally when we closed an hour later, there were sledgehammers rolling and knocking it down. So we didn't miss a beat. And then now we've pre-sold units on 4. 3 we're keeping commercial. We sold units on 4. 5 is sold out. 6 we're going to keep commercial. 7 and 8 is all sold out. So we'll start. The plan.
How many floors is it?
9 stories.
9 stories.
7, 2 are parking though. So the plan will be completely sold out and closed by hopefully January of next year.
Gotcha.
We killed 3 condos on the 9th floor. Just going to have a penthouse that I'll probably end up keeping and renting out as like the Mac Daddiest Airbnb in Lexington. But we're not ready to announce it yet. But we've got a super awesome local chef restaurateur that is going to bring just like a really kick-ass fine dining restaurant. Okay. That's year round on the 9th floor, so outdoor patio, etc. And then we have this cool rooftop that'll be members only, with light bites, pizzas, raw bar, that kind of thing, and a rooftop pool. So I'm building it partly because I think it'd be cool, and I'm gonna be a big customer.
I'm the same way.
But I think Lexington, there's people like, why do we have to go to Miami or St. Bart's to have some really cool experience?
Because there's obviously money here. You got horse money, you got bourbon money. There's a lot of that kind of stuff here, but that never keeps it here type of scenario. And I'm sure some people would want to stay here in that sense. Yeah,
well, I mean, just to have like a different experience. Like I don't know what I would rank in Ruby's, but I would argue I'm probably a pretty top. At least I'm guaranteed top 10 a customer at Ruby's, and I love it, and I'll always be that big customer. But like that's the place to be, right? The Ruby's bar is like the place to be, and it's really because it's the only place to kind of be. I know there's Tony's people, and I'll probably get in trouble for all that bullshit. But
I've actually never even been to
just having another really cool place that can be an experience. I think that's where I spent a lot of time in Miami, the Caribbean, etc. But Miami especially, like that. It's experiential dining, right? I mean, it's good food, good service is a must. Like that's if you don't have that, you have nothing. But having just that cool experience, that cool vibe where you go back through, you hear a song. Luffman, actually, you mentioned he was on here with other things. So we went to St. Bart's together once, but just our wives, and then the group's kind of grown a little bit. I think we're going back in January. But like that's kind of the vibe. Like there's a restaurant called Shalona, which is on the beach in St. Bart's, and like obviously we can't bring the ocean, but it's just a cool vibe. Sure. The food's phenomenal. Yeah. But you're commenting and you're thinking about like that ambiance, that experience, the music that's loud, and like that's kind of the thing that. Why can't you have that on a Thursday?
Especially when you don't have that everywhere here, it's going to stick out even more so. Where people are like, I want to, not everybody, but there's definitely going to be
or do it once, do it twice. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think that's something we're excited about it. Great food, and we want it. I mean, it's going to have a price on it, just to kind of cover everything that we're doing. But we don't want it to make it crazy expensive either. I mean, I think we'll be right in line with that Ruby's price tag, or even a little bit better.
It reminds me of like the Manchester Hotel, obviously, that opened downtown, and just they created obviously that from scratch. But just like they're like, I want to build. They just like, hey, I want to be creative. I want to build something that I think would fit this community, fit this area. Yeah. And those of you that are able to start doing so, I think ahead of the curve, especially as things progress downtown with the new park. I mean, that amphitheater is going to be 4,000 seat amphitheater. Yeah. I don't think most people realize that. I mean, it's going to be some legit concerts down there and so forth like that.
Yeah. I'm buddies with Nick and Wes both on that project, and then obviously Garrett, who's running hospitality, and it's a great product. I mean. You walk into that lobby bar, you don't feel like you're in Lexington, right? I mean, and that's exactly what they wanted to capture. Exactly. And they nailed it, right? I mean, I think they did a really great. Their rooftop's phenomenal. I did tell them mine's going to be better, but their rooftop's awesome. But no, I mean, it's a phenomenal product. And then they're early still, right?
Yeah.
And they're still, as an independent hotel, it's a hard go to get there, and they're doing it, and they're doing the right way because they're going to maximize everyone's value there by keeping it independent.
And when you're independent, it takes a while for people to really get that name recognition.
It does, but positively, like they've already the horse community's kind of really latched onto it, so it's doing well during Keeneland sales and meets and stuff. Bourbon Trail does well, but once Town Branch is fully done, that's their backdrop.
It's gonna be awesome.
It's gonna be beautiful.
It's gonna be awesome. So then you also got the Lexington Exotics with cars. So I'm assuming you're a car guy then at that point. So like, how'd you get? So explain what that is. How did you get into it? I think it's recently opened, or there's some things opening with it, with some membership stuff and so forth.
Yeah, so that's like a super passion project. It's not necessarily a business more than a hobby, but yeah, I love cars. My kids or my son's a big car guy. He's probably a bigger car guy than I am. So the Lexington car community is really just unreal. I mean, the amount of cars that we have in town. When you look at a town like this,
I don't know.
Oh, it's crazy.
Okay.
I mean, like buddies from New York. I mean, Miami has this because Miami's crazy. LA, Newport Beach, but like I would rival our car community with big cities all day long. I mean,
really, I guess maybe it seems like it's hidden to me. Then, like, where has this been happening? Where is that?
Well, I mean, like this guy, Jamie Wexler, and there's a couple Cars Coffee, but Jamie does the Cars and Coffee first Saturday of every month at the Southland Church over on Richmond Road.
Yeah.
There's, 1,000 cars that show up there. It's unreal, like crazy amount of cars that kind of pop up. But last weekend, Steven, who owns Triton, they did there's a Keeneland Concourse big car show that goes everywhere. That's out in the lawn. But before that, they had on Friday night they had a hangar party, and really cool. There's Lambos. I don't know if KR owns Longship. He's got a Lamborghini STO was out there. I took my Cobra. There's Porsches. I mean, it's crazy, and there's just so much of it out there. So so the Lex Exotics came out. I have a commercial project over in Nicholasville. We put walkthrough plans there. Yep. That's one of our
podcast here. Yeah. He was just in the office here last week.
Aaron, okay, cool. Yeah, he's a super smart kid. Met him a couple Christmases ago and invested in that deal. It's such a great concept. Mm-hmm. But on the other side of walkthrough plans, I had like this excess space. I had bought too many cars. And my lifts, I had 4 lifts. So my garage could hold 8 cars. 6 cars, 4 cars and 2 lifts. My garage could hold 6 cars, and I bought a 7th. So I was like, what am I going to do with it? So that's what we created this car club, which is great. I mean, it's a place for buddies to hang out, and members can kind of go through. And we've had different events and private events and stuff there, but it's cool.
Yeah. Then back to the book / we were talking a little bit before this as far as just what you outside of the business world and sort of like that, with quick kids, taking trips and so forth like that, and just what the book has meant to you as far as your life and journey. Talk a little bit about that, what we were talking about, and what you've been planning as far as that's I think a different passion in that sense.
No, for sure. So the book, I've gotten such.
What's the book called again?
It's called Without a Plan, and
Without a Plan.
It's done like a million times better than I ever expected. I really wrote it for my kids. I thought maybe my mom would read it. But Forbes picked it up last year, like one of the top 4 business books, and the feedback that I've gotten has just been amazing. And it's not just been like, oh, I learned these 7 tactical tricks to make business, because that's what the book was, the first draft of it, and I kind of ripped it up because it just felt so disingenuous. Because I was talking about business and the business stories and learning and things I took away from my experience and my journey, the good, bad, and the ugly. I was like, hey, I killed it in this deal. I got screwed and paid millions in fines.
That's authentic, and that's what people want to hear.
Yeah. So because otherwise it's not all lollipops and gumdrops, right? So I wanted to kind of give them everything, and I gave them everything with business, but I didn't really let in the personal side of it, and that's what felt disingenuous. Yeah. Because entrepreneurship is it's very exciting, all that stuff, and everyone likes to do it, but it's miserable, man. Right?
Is it really?
I love it. I'm maybe a masochist.
There's some part of us that's insane.
I love the pain, and I love the struggle, and I think you're paid. You're paid at a scale of how much stress you can handle and pain you can take. I really and the problem and the level of the problems that you can solve. That is directly correlated to how much money you make. And I love that process. I really do. But I wanted to tell, like, when, I had this whole FDA thing and paid millions of dollars in fines, like, how did that affect me, like, in my head, right? Because, like, because it's scary. It's a lonely place sometimes. And I also talked about family. I talked about mistakes I've made. So I was way more vulnerable than I think I even could have been. It was therapeutic and also painful writing, but I think it was so well received because I don't think everyone's going to go and follow my journey, but I think you can relate. Anyone can relate to it because we've all had loss, we've all had death, we've all had struggles in our lives, and you can either choose to really, let those define you, or you look at those moments and you define them. And that's what I kind of talked about. So a big part of that is kind of the family and family dynamic and stuff. So I started doing this 5 years ago, and I don't know what I want to do with it yet, but I'm trying to come up with this moniker of this 4-trip challenge. Okay. That anyone can do it, but I'm really hitting dads because I know you said you had 3 kids. Yeah. I've got a 10-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 5-month-old.
And I've been a 5-month-old.
Yeah.
Wow. Because I've been thinking about this whole trips with dads, especially type of thing.
Well, because moms do it all, right? I mean, dads are I was at home. We just got back from the lake yesterday, and like my son, he's closer to 6 months. And like, he's just my little buddy now, right? I mean, laughing, dad, kind of cute and whatever. And like, he's like, sees me, hears my voice, and we just dies laughing. And my wife's joking, like, "Oh, I'm glad you're building a relationship now." I'm like, "I'm worthless. What am I going to do?" Like from 0 to like 3 months, like it's all mom, right? And really throughout life, so much of this is all mom. Like moms are the most underrated. Yes. They deserve all the credit and they do all the work. So, and that's where your kids most time go to. Like they're going to come to you. Like my son will come to me for homework advice and like sports and those things. But there's a component with that maternal figure that's just more natural. Yeah. So I started doing this trip for every 5th birthday milestone. Each kid solo, they can pick wherever they want to go. Right.
It's 1 to 5, 10, 15, and 20.
Exactly. So that's that's the whole. The idea that is this. Because I didn't think of it. I was like, how do I explain this? And I'm like, because it's very long winded. But the idea is this 4-trip challenge. Yeah. Is that you get 4 massive, and they don't have to be expensive or extravagant or anything, but you just get 4 solo trips with each kid for their lifetime, really. I mean, because after they're 20, think about it.
I know, because you get like 98% of your time by the time they go off to college. You spend, I think, like 98% of their life. With the time that you will spend it with them. Well, I mean, there's so many stats, right? I mean, 16 summers. I don't know if you've heard that one, right? That you only really have 16 summers with your kids. Because again, like my kids go on the lake with me at 5 months. Does he really remember that? So not till 2 are they really remembering it. 18, they may be going to college and not even want to hang out with you. So it could be 15 or 16 summers. Dude, it's so short. I know. And those are filled with travel, lacrosse, travel teams, whatever it is, and sports activities. So 4 trips a year, 4 trips during a lifetime, 5, 10, 15, and 20. So my son's first trip was Legoland. And my daughter's was Barbie World. And that connection that you get on that, because we took a flight to Barbie World, was in Dallas, and then I don't think I knew that existed.
Well, it doesn't. It's like a pop-up thing after the movie. And I have a cute post on it. It was great. It was a quick 3 days. I think we did. We did the American Girl doll and hotel. We did all the stuff. Went out to Sugar Factory, and then my son was Legoland, and we did the rides, Legoland, did the whole deal. We went to good steakhouse in Tampa, and like just had a real nice time. But that bonding of like going to bed every night, traveling just for dad. That I'm telling you, like that made our bond like just a million times tighter. For sure. Because it's just you. Like you're the only parent that they have there, but they're the only kid. So like it's really that intense time that they get uninterrupted with you, and it was massive. And then for my 10th, so my second trip for my son, it's kind of got a little crazy, but he chose Dubai. So we just came back from Dubai. a couple months ago.
Talk about a place that's changed and will continue changing.
Oh, it was amazing. And I've been there. I've been there like 30 times on business, but this is the first time like on a real cool. And like he's into cars, he's into like cool meals and stuff. So like we had like the best time ever. And those things, and I've talked about this on only on one other podcast, but there was like a father-son host, and he had done like 1 or 2 big trips with his kids, and it was cool to hear him talk 20 years later. It's like, dude, that's like one of my more core memories.
I was getting ready to say
that you get
even for us.
Yeah. Oh, dude, it's unimaginable. And now, luckily, with technology, like I'm able to capture it. I didn't capture like I have pictures from the Legoland thing, but I was very deliberate on capturing, you know, the Barbie World thing and the Dubai trip, and it's all on my social media, so you can kind of see them.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter where you have to go, but you can do something big. I mean, if you really think of it, hey, like let's save up, you know, $500 a year, $2,500, like whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
And they can kind of go through and pick. And dude, you know, at 15, who could it be? Like my son right now is loving the lake life and fishing. It could just be a fishing trip. I mean, they change as you know, we all do. Their interests change and whatever, but it's that core
That's
piece.
gonna be a lifetime though.
Yeah. So it's like, and then what that leads to is like my daughter, like, do you ever, you have any girls?
Daughter and then 2 boys.
So do you ever do the father-daughter dance?
As soon as I could.
Dude, I get like this year I went twice, right? And I mean, I'm telling you like that.
Yeah.
I'm probably in trouble, but I let her sit in the front seat with me. We had like she's in a booster and like holding hand. I mean, it's the cutest
and
thing
back
ever.
to the time about the amount of time we had with them, like the year that we were not able to do those things. I was like, nope. I'm still doing it. We're figuring this out. I have an uncle that owns a wedding farm.
Yeah.
And I was like, it was pre-season. I was like, do you mind if I use the wedding farm? And I invited like tons of like clients, family. So like, hey, it's outdoors in a barn. We're still having this thing. I'm not skipping
That's
a year
awesome.
type of scenario. So.
Yeah. No,
Totally.
it's great, but then it makes them want that more. Like I mean, my daughter literally said something to me the other day, like, "Well, when are we going to follow daughter?" I'm like, "Baby, it's like I can't control it, but it's coming. It's coming up soon." But my son was at lacrosse camp, and he was away, so it was just our baby, and then it was just her. She's like, "I want to have a date," and I'm like, "Okay, let's go." So like it was like a Tuesday night. I think we've done several date nights like that, which is so
it's so
cute.
hard. Like you have to be intentional because it's so easy to like it fall off the schedule. I'm trying so hard to like keep that, even those small things on the schedule right now. But you know, with sports and travel and like that. And again, we grind, we take chances, et cetera, and work in an entrepreneur wise. But it's all for me. It's all for that type of scenario in general. And I don't want to sit there and just like save, and do all the stuff for when I'm 65 and never have enjoyed and skipped out on all this stuff. I'm like, I can use some money here for this. I can use for a trip for things that'll be more of like a memory scenario than anything.
For sure.
Like, well, who cares if I have a little less money in my retirement or something like that? Like, I'm still going to bet on myself and know I can still grind.
No, for sure. There's a friend of mine I met down in the islands at Branson's place. He wrote a book that I recommend so hard to everyone. It's called Die with Zero, Bill Perkins.
Die with Zero?
Die with Zero.
Okay.
And I love to tell like my financial buddies about it because they're like, this is an absolute worst thing ever. But the idea is, you know, he calls these things, you know, memory dividends, right? No matter how much money you have, like you hit terminal cancer or you hit something, right? Like there's no amount of money that's ever going to save you. But you know, it changed my whole perspective on trust and estate planning, et cetera. And that, hey, if are your parents still alive or, okay, how old are you?
I'm 38.
38. So God forbid in 20 years your parents pass away and they leave you a bunch of money. That money isn't going to really change your life.
Yeah.
But when you were 28 or 25 and just getting married, like that money actually could have been more impactful. So like so often we plan and I think a lot of high net worth individuals were like this. My trusts were set up in the fact that they were, you know, incentive based. So they were going to get core things taken care of, and then when they were 25 or 30 years old, they would get a big lump sum.
Yeah.
But until then, it was like you make $100,000, I'll match $100,000. I was doing this, and like I remember we were on a boat, we were on a big yacht for like my birthday trip or something, and I was like FaceTiming Bill. My wife set up a FaceTime with me, and I was telling him like I was so happy, like I was like this is so well thought out. He's like, yeah, let's just. You know, the dumbest thing I've ever had in my life. I'm like, well, cool, man. I appreciate that. Thanks. Fucking like $40,000 worth of docs, but thanks for just shitting on it.
Yeah.
And he's like, dude, if your daughter wants to be, you know, a poet in Chelsea, right? She's probably not gonna make a lot of money. But if that's what makes her happy, like, why would you set up something for her that's going to force that's designed to make her do something she doesn't want to do? And the hack is what you're planning for all those things is for your kids not to f it up when you're not here.
Sure.
You solve for that by give them the money now, right? If your charity needs money, you want to leave money to charity, give the money to the charity now. Like, it's going to do more. Help the kids out for the first house. Like, kind of go through and do that. So the whole idea is the saving for retirement. Like, saving for what? How many people retire at 60 and then get sick and then they can't travel, can't do it? You see it every day.
Yeah.
So when you're 100 years old in a nursing home, I don't give a fuck how many zeros in your bank account, right? All you really have are those experiences, right? So that's what you should be kind of spending. That's what things are going to remind. Not the stuff. And again, I buy all the stupid, like the cars and stuff. I like that, but I like it, and that builds something with my son that we go through and take cruises down Military Pike. So you know what I mean, like that. So it's a different thing. I think
there's a healthy balance too, because like there was an inept aspect of that we learned just from the hustle, the grind, and the drive that is sometimes missed if I was just handed everything, right? And so I'm always fighting that balance of like, how do I help, especially my kids or anybody else in general, of figuring out the idea of like grind, drive, and hustle type of scenario, but be willing to take chances at the same time. Because I forget who I was the other day, I heard something like that, but they basically were kind of saying, we've always been taught this mentality that if you just grind hard enough, work hard enough, like you're going to make it. Like, yeah, you can make it, you'll be fine, etc. But if you really want to do bigger things or have that idea of like high net worth individuals or anything like that, a lot of times that comes down to luck of something happening and you not being afraid to take chance after chance after chance, and eventually some of these things start happening type of scenario. So I was like, you know what, in some ways luck is a lot, it has something to do with it.
It's like, I'm a firm believer that I don't think entrepreneur is something that is taught, right? I know there's entrepreneurship programs and stuff like that, but
you still have to just do it.
You either are one or you're not. I'm sorry, I'm controversial maybe, but like my brother and my brother has got a great job. He's a VP at one of the companies I've sold since, but he's still there, makes good money. He's the most risk adverse person in the world, but very happy. Like, so who's got it wrong? Yeah. We grew up in the same environment. I was a little bit older when our dad died, so I think maybe there's some attribution to that. But you are who you are, and that's the same for yourself as for your kids. Yeah. And I think I struggled with that early on. Like with my first son, like said, like he's gonna take over Delk Enterprises and he's gonna be this hard charging thing. Yeah. He may be, but he may not. And I think it's more likely that he's not going to be, right? Because he's growing up way different than I am. And it took me some time to think. And Luffman and I actually have these conversations. Like I think that's everyone's biggest fear. Like, how do we not raise ups, right? How do we not raise little kids? Yeah. And so far, I think we're doing a good job. Like, he's all the kids are kind and thoughtful, and like that's what you want them to be. But I don't know that they're going to be a carbon copy of you, and I think you got to accept that. Yeah. And I think you go through like, hey, whatever makes them happy. And it's not just getting the house would be a house. Like, are they working hard in school? Are they doing something? Are they a good person? All those things. Right. Like, I think kind of being there to help them out. That's what your job is for, to kind of get them on their feet, I think.
I appreciate, I don't want to keep too much of your time, but if anybody wants to find that book, follow you on social media, websites, or anything like that, where can they find you on those things?
It's jeremydelk.com, Jeremy S. Delk on all socials. And the book's on Amazon. Yeah. It's on Audible, anywhere, bookstores. Perfect.
Jeremy, I appreciate the time. I'm excited we had this conversation. A lot of cool things to come out of it and things to think about, especially I think the fatherhood stuff. I'm glad we talked a little bit more about that, because I think that's obviously a part of me that's growing a lot, being a father myself with 3 young kids. And at the end of the day, we talk about all the business stuff we want, but really that's what matters. Yeah, that's what it's for. Absolutely. I appreciate the time. We'll see everybody next week on another episode of the Keys to Commonwealth podcast. Thanks, Jeremy.
Thanks.